Hey everyone, Sean and Dave here from Saturday Morning Cartoons. We cannot start this week's show, absolutely cannot start this week's show, until we thank the following people who went to patreon.com to sponsor this show.
Derek Haynes,
Alex Kazanis,
Jack Connolly,
Jonathan Renteria Elye,
Bill Dixon,
the wonderful Melanie Harker,
Dr. Jason Woods,
oh, the fantastic Allison Keene,
the alright Jamal Newman,
the so-so John Helter,
Battle Mat Fitness,
the wonderful David Trumbore,
and the one and only Sean Paul Ellis. Hey, out there, if you guys want to be on this list or just want to know what's coming up next week on the show, check out patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons for more details. And remember, that's morning with a U.
Thank you so much for sponsoring us. Thank you so much for listening. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you at the beginning of a Hanukkah celebration, I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, my co-host, my buddy, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, Sean?
David, I'm doing well, buddy. How about yourself?
Doing good. How's your Hanukkah celebration going?
Well, strangely enough, it is not going to kick off until tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't celebrate it, so I don't know what is going on this week. I was kind of hoping that you'd help me out here.
Well, I can definitely help you out, but I'm actually going to ask for some assistance.
Yeah.
Theater performer, friend of the show, and previous guest that we've had on, Melanie Harker, is coming back to the show tonight. Say hi.
Is she there? There she is.
And she's here, and she's going to help us out because I have to profess, I am not 100% clear on all of the Hanukkah celebration, but we actually do celebrate Hanukkah in our house.
How about that?
Classic Jewish move to hide, by the way.
I really thought Sean was going to say,
hiding.
I am not 100% Jewish.
I was not going to say.
He's not 100% Jewish. In fact, he's not
Jewish.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Straight up not Jewish.
Nobody's defending that. Nobody's disputing the fact that I'm not Jewish right now.
I just want to make sure that the listeners are clear. Sean Ellis, not a Jew. Melanie Harker also doesn't sound like a Jew, but Schuster is my mother's maiden name, and that is a super Jewish name. So
Surprise.
Leslie Merrill Schuster.
Yeah, Trumbore, not the most Jewish of names.
No, not quite. Not
Go
quite.
figure. No. Have we talked about, okay, so it's December, end of year holidays. Have we done any holiday specials on this show that did not deal directly with just Christmas or maybe just like a winter, like a secular winter holiday? Have we done anything?
Well, you guys did
that?
Jack Frost, a cup like,
yeah, so
which is just like a winter holiday.
A pagan.
It is actually very pagan. They do get into like the seasons and shit, so that's definitely true. But I've been wanting to do today's cartoon for a while because it was like beyond another sort of like animated children's warehouse of goods that had to do with the Jewish religion and culture, which was Shalom Sesame, which was like an offshoot of Sesame Street. There's like 3 seasons now. Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah, we could crack that open sometime in the future. That is all about it's Jewish culture education for kids, and there's a lot of really famous cameos of famous Jewish actors in America that come on and talk about the alphabet and like the Hebrew alphabet and culture and history, and it's really interesting. It was my only Hebrew school as a child, and then the other thing I had was today's cartoon.
Interesting. Now, so you obviously watched Rugrats Hanukkah when you were a kid. I remember this coming on too, but there's also a Rugrats Passover special.
And there is also a Rugrats Kwanzaa episode that they have as well.
I saw that in the reviews. Sean's not actually making a joke. He's being serious for once. There's actually a Kwanzaa special. I didn't know that either. I don't think I've seen that one though. Was that one that
it
came
must
out later?
have. At least when we were browsing it on the Hulus, it seemed as though it was a more recent episode. Like this animation style looked a lot more recent than this 1996 special.
Yeah, it looked 2000s.
Yeah, I wonder if that came back after the fact and was just like a special, a one-off special, like not part of a season like this one was. But I'm giving too much away of Sean's history here. So, buddy, why don't you take over and let us know about this?
So those of you who are not familiar, a Rugrats Chanukah, titled on screen as Hanukkah, and sometimes called the Rugrats Chanukah Special, is a special episode of Nickelodeon's animated television series Rugrats. In 1992, Nickelodeon executives had pitched the idea of a Hanukkah special to the production team, but the concept was revised and later became the 1995 special, A Rugrats Passover. After production of the Passover episode wrapped, the crew returned to the Hanukkah idea. Nickelodeon broadcast a Rugrats Hanukkah on December 4th, 1996, and the episode received a Nielsen's rating of 7.9 and positive reviews from television critics. Along with other Rugrat episodes featuring Boris and his wife, Minka, the special attracted controversy when the Anti-Defamation League compared the character design to the anti-Semitic drawings from a 1930s Nazi newspaper.
Of course they did. Of course they did. They needed to find something to
That's what the kids love.
Complain about, and they found it.
These kids are reading way too many 1930s Nazi newspapers, and we need to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Kids love it. And they're going to draw those conclusions. They're going to connect those dots.
Sean, did you just pull out your Spiderman voice?
No, that was not my J. Jonah Jameson Spiderman voice.
Oh man.
No, sorry, everybody who is guys. But I appreciate everybody messaging me and telling me that they want me to do my J. Jonah Jameson voice more often. So thank you for all the messages, guys. I really do appreciate the support.
I've been paying them.
Are you so?
Please stop paying them.
Yeah.
We're gonna stop this podcast.
It's so much fun though. I get so much enjoyment out of it.
We're gonna stop this podcast, and it's just gonna become a podcast where people bruise my ego, as frail and as shattered as it already is.
It's good practice for making ginger bitch cookies, like we talked about last week. All right, moving on. If you guys don't know what Rugrats are, I can't help you. Go back and listen to our Rugrats episode. If you don't know what Hanukkah is, that's also a problem. If you know just a little bit about both of these, you can probably have a decent idea of what the Rugrats Hanukkah special is about. But to break it down for you a little bit more, here we go. This is the first episode of the show's 4th season and the 66th overall. It tells the story of the Jewish holiday Hanukkah through the eyes of the Rugrats, who imagine themselves as the main characters in the story. Meanwhile, Grandpa Boris and his longtime rival Shlomo feud over who will play the lead in the local synagogue's Hanukkah play. It sounds like that's just like a weird side story, but that's actually kind of like the main crux of this entire special, which I did not expect.
I also want to mention that the choice of the name Shlomo, which I definitely did not remember from being a child, made me laugh so hard because I was in a production in undergrad of Fiddler on the Roof. And when you're in, when you purchase the script package from, I think it's like MTI or whoever owns the rights, every single villager in the village that the Fiddler on the Roof takes place in has a very Ashkenaz Jewish name. Like every single one of them do.
Oh, really?
And so even if you have no lines, you know your name is Beryl, which is an actual name in that script. Or like there are many other ones, but another one that we all loved was Shlomi. But Shlomi is, I think, like the level up of Shlomo. And they're probably...
Is it like the diminutive? Is it like the cutesy version of
maybe
of
like
Shlomo?
like little Shlomo is Shlomi. Like that's probably true.
Like if you feed it enough Shlomo candies, it turns into like a second evolution of Shlomi.
Maybe that's possible.
Okay.
It's super effective. Yeah.
It's super effective.
From what I hear. Man, I would love a Pokemon Hanukkah.
Oh my god, I'm definitely gonna make this happen.
Are you serious?
That'd be a lot of fun.
What would be in your Pokemon?
Wait, Mel's gonna make this?
Yeah,
I don't know how that's gonna
because
work,
you
but I can't
would
wait to see
spin
it.
the dreidel, and then each of the sides, like the Gimmel or the Hay, like they pop out, and they are actually like Pokemon characters.
Let's back this up. What are you talking about?
So, a dreidel is a 4-sided
Got
top
that.
toy that you use.
Okay, like Inception.
Yes, like Inception that you use.
No, that his totem wasn't a.
No, yes, it is like a top. That is what Dave is asking.
I saw the Jewish cut of Inception, and it was definitely a dreidel.
So when you play the game dreidel, you use the instrument, the top, a dreidel. It is 4-sided square. And when it lands, so when the dreidel stops spinning, which it eventually does, unlike the top in Inception, which I think just keeps going through as you like come in and out of the levels or whatever the fuck happens in that movie. You have a certain outcome. So each of the 4 sides dictates how much out of the pot of money that you contribute when you play dreidel you get to take with you, or you get to distribute among everybody.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Like, I knew it was a game and there was something to do with like the little gold foil chocolate coins usually, right? Yeah, but I never knew that.
Kids will typically play with gold coins. So the 4 sides, because this will actually come into play with some jokes in this episode.
I can say, well, you got them?
Yeah, I have them.
Okay. Google does great things for
the non-Jewish.
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
For the non-chosen people?
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So it's nun, which means...
None.
Correct.
Yes.
Means you get nothing.
You don't get shit.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Hey.
Which means you get half of the pot.
Shin.
Which means you
realize if you get this wrong, you do not get to go on birthright.
I don't get to go on birthright because I'm too old anyway.
All right, let's calm down.
She's kicked out of the club.
What does shin mean?
Shin means everyone adds one in?
You put in, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And that means gimel would mean...
that you get all the pot.
Correct.
The pot of
like
Skeleton Center. Or the money.
I like that one. What if I spend 1 gimel and then I just leave? Is that cool?
I mean, I think you need to play 4 rounds, but yeah.
Oh, 4 rounds. Okay, interesting.
I mean, something to make it interesting, right? Like, you don't just play like one hand of poker and walk away, do you?
That's what I...
Yeah, I was like, I don't think that's how that works.
I mean, I've seen David in a cathedral.
Cathedral playing poker.
Pause.
Yeah, I used to gamble all the time in this local cathedral.
It was turned into a casino, and everybody was cool with it.
Isn't that just all of Pittsburgh?
Scored a lot of guilt.
Oh, cathedrals turned into casinos?
Yeah, everything has a hidden casino.
Yeah.
I thought that's just what happened in Pittsburgh.
But back to Rugrats Chanukah.
Oh my God.
So here's the fun thing about this particular episode, as far as our podcast goes. For 180 some episodes now, we usually go through the theme song, followed by the characters, the animation style, and then we hit the plot. However, this is Rugrats. And just because it's a Hanukkah special, they really don't change anything else except for the story itself. So we already know the theme song because it's the same as the regular Rugrats theme song. We already know the characters, with the exception of maybe a couple who we'll talk about in a second. And we already know most of the animation style, except for a couple of interesting wrinkles that they throw in here during the telling of the story. But before we get to the plot, Sean, do you have a character that maybe stands out that you'd like to talk about?
I do.
Other than our usual cast?
I do. I have. I actually have 3 characters, but I think one that was...
That's greedy. I asked you for one.
Well,
you think you're spinning a gimel?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna throw it to Mel. Mel, any characters that stand out to you?
Why, yes, Dave. Thank you so much for asking me before Sean. So there are the number one character that really stands out. We get to learn a lot about Grandpa Boris today with this episode, and sort of his past and his he has a friend that we also learn about, his friend from childhood. His name is Shlomo.
Now you're just getting greedy. Now he asked you for
one character, and I'm explaining. So Boris has this friend, and we learn a lot about Grandpa Boris and his choice to build a family when he was young versus becoming like an entrepreneur and getting lots of money, which I guess there's only 2 forks in the road. You can't have it all.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Nope. Way back.
Kids are wealth. That's it.
Way back, right? Kids are money. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we learn a lot about him and his love for Tommy and his love for the theater and his dislike for getting poked.
And we've seen with a play sword. And we've seen Boris before. They've popped up in a number of episodes in the Rugrats, but this is the first one that kind of has a little bit more focus on Boris and his relationship with his grandson Tommy, and the other kids as well, because they're all part of the Hanukkah festivities, which was kind of neat. I like that. We'll get to the plot in a second. Sean, is there anybody we left out?
We left out Boris's wife, Minka, who we should say that these are Dee Dee's, Tommy Pickles' parents, or Tommy Pickles' mom. These are her parents. So this is the maternal side of Tommy Pickles.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting about this is I don't know if they mentioned that, Dee Dee was Jewish before, or that Tommy is half Jewish, or however the heredity works.
Well, no, he's full Jewish.
Or the fact that
full Jewish.
He's full Jewish because of his mother's heritage, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the fact that his dad is Gentile plays into this plot, which is pretty funny because Stu, God love him, Stu is always kind of a tinkerer, an inventor. 99% of his ideas quite literally blow up in his face. And this was some of the more, not necessarily offensive, but some of the more spectacular I think maybe he's ever had. And they even point out to it. They're like, I really hope he doesn't do anything that's just going to get us in trouble or paint us in a bad light in this episode. And we can talk about whether or not he did or not as we continue on. Anything else from characters you guys want to mention here?
No, I think that those are, aside from the regular cast of characters that we're going to be familiar with, we're gonna also get a chance to see them with a little bit of a Jewish spin on some of them at the very beginning of this episode.
A Jewish
little
spin?
Yeah, it's called a dreidel.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I regret everything.
I don't know if we get to meet Cynthia in previous episodes or not. I can't remember if we ever see her on the show, or we just see the doll Cynthia, which is this version of Barbie. It's Rugrats' version of Barbie. Yeah. Isn't
there a dream episode, a dream sequence episode where we get to meet Cynthia as a person, as a manifestation in air quotes, right?
It doesn't really but maybe. But we definitely get to see her on TV as this singer, dancer, entertainer for a Christmas special that Angelica wants to watch. The only reason I bring it up is because once we get to our love it, hate it for tonight, you're going to absolutely love the hate it review tonight. And it revolves around Cynthia. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
It's amazing.
I've got questions. Okay.
Okay, so animation style. This is mid-90s animation. It's the Rugrats. It's the classic kind of a little squiggly, a little lumpy babies that you know and love. Everybody's kind of got weird proportions. They look a little stretched, a little inflamed. They all kind of look the same. Go ahead, Sean.
Now, do you think that some of the inspiration for Lumpy Mashed Potato Dog from Give a Mouse a Christmas Cookie came from the lumpiness that is apparent in Tommy Pickles' head?
I think the lump quotient, I think Lumpy Space Princess is far lumpier than Lumpy Potato Dog. I don't know if she's as lumpy as the entire cast of the Rugrats characters. They're very lumpy people. I actually feel bad for the animators because that is a lot of lumps to keep track of and keep in the same place. Otherwise, they just move around the body, and that's not good for you.
No, that's malignant, I think.
That's metastasis.
Or they're young enough where these are all soft spots, and we did have a soft spot joke in this episode too.
We did.
Yep.
We did have a soft spot joke, yes.
Oh, boy.
Look, I love Rugrats because this is one of those shows that you can go back to years. I mean, we're talking 20 years later now from this one. And you find more jokes that you can appreciate that you probably missed when you were 8 or 10 or 12 years old. So definitely a good one to go back and revisit. I'm getting ahead of myself. Animation style. There is one little snippet of animation that I thought was interesting because Rugrats didn't do this very often. In the telling of the tale of the Hanukkah story, the original Hanukkah story, that really opens up this entire episode, there is an interesting sort of transition in animation style from lumpy-headed kids to sort of comic book almost, kind of action scene, very much more realistic than this cartoon version of sort of the ancient battles between the Jewish people and the Greeks who were in charge at the time. It was interesting to kind of see that. I get that wrong.
What's going on?
The Maccabees and the Romans.
The Romans. I say Greeks? I thought they said Greeks in the show.
Let's fact check before we continue. Sorry, Dave.
Guys, do we not know how Hanukkah...
I don't.
I mean, the story of Hanukkah begins in the reign of Alexander the Great. Alexander conquered Syria, Egypt, and Palestine, but allowed the lands under his control to continue observing their own religions and retain a certain degree of autonomy. Under his relatively benevolent rule, many Jews assimilated much to the Hellenistic culture, adopting the language and customs and the dress of the Greeks.
What?
Mm-hmm. In much the same way that the Jews of America today blend into the secular American society.
Hellenistic period covers a period of Mediterranean history between the death of Alexander and the emergence of the Roman Empire.
Well, I'm the worst Jew that ever lived. Okay, I apologize, Dave, for cutting.
Well, no, I don't know, because I think they cover a really broad swath of time, from like Greek dominion, where everything was chill, possibly up till let me look. What was his name?
Alexander?
Antiochus?
Yeah, guy.
Antiochus. Antiochus the Fourth.
Antiochus.
Aintiochus.
Yeah.
IV.
Oh. Key battles between the Maccabees and the Syrian Greeks. So it's all kind of a little messy over there.
It's all a mishmash.
Yeah, okay. I apologize. I will be quiet.
No, you're good. So we'll leave that. Because I was going on to...
You were talking about
just basically talking about that animation.
Yeah,
style.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry.
Yeah, that animation style, Dave, was very 300 of this show.
Yeah, like a few years before that actually hit. Which is kind of interesting. Don't expect to see that in a Rugrats episode. But that was the only time they did it.
Do you think that the lumpiness that was in this show inspired the lumpiness in the movie 300?
Do you think it inspired lumpy muscles?
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Great.
Where were the lumpy muscles in 300?
I'm kidding.
I have questions.
They were under the... Remember that one guy that couldn't hold his shield up and stab with the spear? That guy. Lumpy Spartan. It wasn't his name. Lumpy Spartan. In the Rugrats version of 300, he is known as Lumpy Spartan.
So we had a battle between the Maccabees and the Greeks, correct?
Yeah, now here's the thing. They start a little bit earlier in the story. We're going to dive into plot here because why not? But did you guys expect the entire episode to be like the actual story of Hanukkah? Like we are thrown back to like ancient times, ancient Middle East, Egypt, Mesopotamia, that whole area. We're thrown back there, but the Rugrats are in place of the characters in the story. So they're carrying out and acting out the story. But we get interrupted a few minutes into this. I thought we were going to spend the whole time back there like it was just the story in those times. But no, that's not what happens. What did you guys think? Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if they were going to go full VeggieTales on this or not.
Never go full VeggieTales.
Yeah, to bring in the Christian perspective here. I'm just kidding.
Oh, jeez.
I know.
She
VeggieTales
just converted
too.
our entire podcast.
We gotta put one of those on our list for some time in the future. But
oh god,
yes, we do. It's great. No, I did expect them to really just tell the whole story with them in those positions. But it's not super long, and they kind of tell like the sort of 2 or 3 beats of the Hanukkah story over the course of the episode, and it's way more fun to watch the kids kind of figure out some of these terms that are new and foreign to them, and make baby sense of it. So that's been fun.
I think it's challenging because there was no way that they could explain the full tale in and of itself because it's so violent. And they got right into the point where they were about to get violent, and they changed animation style, and they're like, you know what? We're going to let the battles happen, and we're going to do some like basic Rugrats stuff that you're familiar with and pepper in a little story. And then we're going to come back to it about the lighting of the candles with the oil, or possibly, at the menorah at the end of it we're going to come back to it later with the idea of lighting the menorah with either oil or candles towards the end of it, and kind of bookend this entire tale.
So that is the theme of my childhood in a nutshell.
Skipping the violent battles and just getting to the menorah.
So I had when in New Jersey, growing up in New Jersey in the 90s, there's a lot of education in our public schools about, I'm going to get really dark for a second.
Sure.
About the Holocaust.
Welcome.
There's so much education about it. And it's horrifying. Like, there's no nice way to talk about the Holocaust. Everyone tries. They're like, we'll talk about Anne Frank. It'll be fine. But I was reading books in the 4th and 5th grade that were just like super dark. And my mom actually was a part of like a small group of parents who were like, why are you making our children who are not even 10 years old, like, read about these, like, horrible war stories. Like, there's no need for that right now. Like, we can help, you know, like, you're basically telling the story of, like, why they don't know who their ancestors are. I mean, like, there's a blank spot after my grandparents that we just, like, I just don't know where they came from, don't know who they are, and never will, right? And so there was just this, like, this sense of having to just, like, every year uncover this, like, horribly uncomfortable, very violent conversation, which is important to have in our society, and I don't disagree with that, but
just maybe not when you're 10 years
just maybe not when you're, like, every single year that you are in public school, let's have 2 months where we just concentrate on this history which for a lot of people is kind of a foreign concept, and for others is still pretty personal. Like, this generation, maybe not. When I was in school, I was still a part of the generation who had, like, grandparents who had come over from World War II. And the further we get into history, it'll be way more removed, and maybe then it'll be a little less harrowing, harrowing rather. But for my mom, it was like, why are we reading these books and, like, really digging into it? So it's funny that you say, you know, let's stop when it gets violent, and we'll come back to it in the end. It's like, that's kind of the Jewish culture in a nutshell. It's like all religion, right? It's like there's a horribly violent portion in the middle, and then everything nice is kind of around it. So it's interesting.
I want to bring up, I know that you had mentioned about sort of talking about and understanding the Holocaust. I remember in 4th or 5th grade, we had to read, what was it, Number the Stars?
That was the book.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be.
That's between that and Anne Frank,
So I never read Number the Stars because my mom was like, I don't want you to read this. It's horrible.
Well, Lois Lowry does a great job.
I was a kid reading, like, the Mouse comics.
I don't think they had come around at that time. The Mouse.
When did they come out?
I will Google that.
Man, I can't remember how old I was when I got my hands on it, but I picked it up and I was just like, this is interesting. And then you start reading and you're just like, oh, God.
I've actually never heard of these comics.
Oh, really?
No.
This is interesting, Dave. No, I was wrong. Mouse is a graphic novel by American cartoonist Art Spiegelman, serialized from 1980 to 1991. He interviews his father.
I got it when they collected. Yeah. I got it when they collected them in the trades, I think.
So this is just super quick. It depicts Spiegelman interviewing his father about his experiences as a Polish Jew and Holocaust survivor.
Right.
So it's like the mice and then the cats are the Nazis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there's, like, other... Have you guys not read it?
No, I've never read it, no.
Oh, it's really good. I mean, it's very accessible, I think, for kind of, like, however old I was at the time when I read it. It's much more... It's in the same vein as, like, you know, if you watch Watership Down, or if you watch Plague Dogs, things like that, where they use animals as a stand-in for both the victims and the the persecutors of all these different atrocities. But, yeah. So... I think Rugrats was wise to kind of skip over babies slaughtering other babies during this like primetime special or whatever it was. So,
but are you sure though? Because a Mac of baby's got to do what a Mac of baby's got to do.
Such a cute moment. And I literally wrote down that I want a collection of scrolls with pop-ups to tell me the stories of the Bible. That would be such a much more entertaining way of
I also wrote that down, Dave. I thought that was such a lovely touch that they did that.
Just to be very clear, they're not scrolls. We're talking about Torah.
Well,
they're reading.
They still scrolls.
But it's got an actual proper name. You wouldn't just call that, like, if you had a Bible here, you wouldn't just call it like a book, right? You'd call it the Bible.
That book. Give me that book.
It's the book of the Bible. So the scrolls.
I want to pop up Torah. I want to pop up Torah.
Same.
Can I get that?
Well, I love the fact that they interject this with a moment where they are discovered reading these scrolls, the Torah, and they pull out dreidels and begin to spin them. And this soldier is like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "We're playing with our dreidels." And then they just quick aside, they're like, "We made them out of clay." And I was like, "That's." I like how sneaky you guys are being about this. And then throughout this entire episode, there is, I think, about 6 different times that they interject with things about Judaism, but they kind of baby misconstrue them. They baby Rugrats misconstrue all these phrases.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. What were some of your favorites?
My favorite was in the very beginning when they said that the Hanukkah candles were birthday candles and they had to blow them out.
Yeah,
which is like absolutely what you don't fucking do to the menorah at all.
That is a good lesson.
Even
I do like that they were like, maybe it's your birthday, maybe you're all grown up now and have to get a job. I thought that was super cute.
So funny. I remember as a kid, we had 2 menorahs. One that was like handmade. It's a brass. It's like a baby menorah. It was handmade by my great grandfather. And then we had like a regular like stainless steel menorah that was like the big adult menorah, right? And when we'd light both menorahs. But if we had to go out again, like it was you light them at sundown, and then if my mom like forgot something at the store, she would just be like, "I'm so sorry" to like her dead parents, and then like put her take them out. It was hilarious. She'd be like, "I'm so sorry, Aunt Ethel," and then we would like blow them out. It was.
I feel like fire safety is important.
Yeah, but you're supposed to let them burn to their full,
right.
All the way out before doing anything. Yeah, big offense. Sorry, Lessel. Just throwing you under the bus here.
I wonder if we, and by we, I mean Christian, I don't know why I'm lumping myself in with that, but the Christian practice of Advent candles. Mm-hmm. So each week you basically have a different candle leading up to like the Christ candle, which I don't know if it's lit on Christmas Day or the Sunday before. This is all fairly new to me. I'm in like a Anglican church down here in the South. I don't remember having those as a kid. Maybe we did. I don't remember them. So it's fairly new. But yeah, they have 3 or 4 Advent candles and then 1 Christ candle that they light. And I wonder if we stole it from this practice, because it seems pretty similar and kind of a ripoff, but I'm not sure.
I think the practice of lighting candles in religion is like a pretty well-known thing. I don't know if anybody started it at all. Sean's making uncomfortable faces, but
it's like the only thing you could do in like ancient religions, though. It's like the only pseudo-magical thing you could do as someone here on Earth. Like, I can make fire and light a thing that'll stay lit. That's pretty magical for this time when we don't have electricity or internet or Netflix.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's pretty magical. Yeah.
Yep, Netflix, pretty magical. 21st century magic. 21st century
That's my current
magic
god.
in the air.
We got Bruno Mars on the show right now.
So dangerous. I know that's not the lyrics.
We're going to get a cease and desist on that.
Another?
What other, more copyright infringements, what other fun little babyisms jumped out at you guys?
Sure. So
I definitely got my favorite.
Oh, what was your favorite then, Dave?
My favorite is the meanie of Hanukkah.
Yep.
Oh.
The meanie of Hanukkah.
What was your favorite, Sean?
Yeah.
Instead of synagogue, they called it cinema bob.
Oh, I think I missed that one. But
when they're in their strollers and they're being pushed into the synagogue, they're just like, "Hey, look, there's the cinema bob," and I don't know why that struck me as being so
much
funny.
More delicious.
Yeah, but we're missing out. There were I think there were a couple more. They said instead of miracle, they would say mirable.
Yeah, mirable.
Yeah, the mirable. They would continue to say harmonica instead of Hanukkah.
Right.
And instead of dreidels, very, very early on when you see them playing with them for the first time, they say cradles. They're like, these cradles, they don't taste good as they're
super
like
cute when you just switch letters and then say it.
Yep.
And then you're a baby. Even though you're like a 30-year-old adult playing a baby, still super cute.
Still super cute.
I also think it's fun. Oh, sorry, Dave.
I was just going to say for the meaning of Hanukkah, it kind of played into the plot a little bit more, because you essentially find out that Boris finds out his rival Shlomo is sort of taking over the publicity for this Hanukkah play at the synagogue. So their feud kind of reignites, right? The kids find that Boris is going to face his rival, and they think that he is, quote, the meanie of Hanukkah, rather than trying to find the meaning of Hanukkah. And they use that throughout the story. So it becomes an inciting incident for them to like protect their grandfather from this old guy who's the meanie of Hanukkah. And that gets them involved in all sorts of stuff throughout the series run. So I thought that was a lot of fun.
So they have, to back your point up, Dave, not only do the babies think that Shlomo is the meanie, but Boris also thinks that Shlomo is a meanie as well. Did you catch the little speech that he had that was in the kitchen about his childhood experiences with Shlomo?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
So he says, if I caught a smelt, he caught a sturgeon.
Oh, yeah.
I caught a cold, he caught pneumonia. I started a family, he started a fancy schmancy business.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
there's some like surprising kind of like, this sounds weird, but mature immaturity going on.
Oh yeah.
Like some very adult problems that these two have that have not been reconciled yet. And it's a weird way to like work that into this idea of like teaching about Hanukkah to little kids and also having the entertaining Rugrats episode, but also having these like this older generation that still have a grudge against each other that is resolved by the end of the episode. It's an interesting way to work that in that you don't really see coming. It's a weird episode that maybe shouldn't work because they have three very different things going on, but it all kind of comes together in a really nice way at the end. What do you guys think about Angelica? Did she learn anything from being like super consumerist and greedy as usual and selfish?
No, I don't think so.
Not
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that's who I was as a child. I didn't give a fuck about Judaism as a child. I was like, bring on the presents, which I was surprised that Angelica really didn't harp on, is that she was going to get 8 presents for the 8 nights.
I feel like she probably celebrates both holidays though.
Especially why she would not harp on the presents aspect of Hanukkah, which actually nobody really talked about the presents aspect of Hanukkah in this special at all, which I thought was interesting.
Right after the beginning, when they were trying to figure out why there were
birthday
candles
presents
lit and why he kept, because like Tommy, he thought he was getting birthday presents and he held up that like scary mask for whatever reason,
and it like scares the shit out of Chucky and he falls over.
Yeah.
Oh, Chucky.
But yeah,
the whole thing. I think, let's see, the villains of this piece are probably Angelica. And then weirdly, like Stu, because he tries to he's always got the best intentions, right? He's always got the best reasons behind everything. He wants to show Dee Dee that he supports her, and he wants to make his in-laws and his son proud of his heritage. He wants them to understand and appreciate his heritage. So, in the only way that Stu can do it, he makes a giant robotic catastrophe of a menorah. That this thing has like a ton of potentially offensive things included with it. Like, what was it? Like a bunch of
it's a bunch of men doing the Hava Nagila like all the way around. It's so much fun.
Music going, and it's just like a weird cuckoo clock kind of thing all stuffed together. There's like whistles and lights and everything going, and it's like this robotic menorah that pieces are falling off and flying around and exploding and blowing the circuits in the house. And I love the fact that they strapped this to the roof of their car and drove to the cinema bob and got stuck in the middle of a Christmas parade. I just love that one little quick scene where it's just like a giant menorah all lit up in the middle of a Christmas parade. Now, this question's for Sean. Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Do you recall ever driving around and seeing the giant menorahs on top of people's cars during Hanukkah? Like not parades. I mean, just like people driving around Squirrel Hill.
No, did they do that?
Really? You don't remember that? You even lived in like Shadyside, right? In Squirrel Hill, there were multiple cars that had these just like massive menorahs they'd put on the top of their cars and drive around in. I remember one blue minivan always had this on, and they would have light bulbs in it, and each day they would have another one lit as they were driving around at night.
That is so cool.
Those are cool.
Yeah, I was like, this is pretty cool unless you hit
rad.
like a low-hanging tree and the holidays ruined, but
well,
I was just like, this is cool because I can keep track of Hanukkah this week.
Oh my
I don't know
God.
what else is going on, but I can keep track.
Wait, why do I feel like so many of Dave's holidays are just like, I go put something on top of my car? Ugh, but what about a low-hanging tree? A low-hanging tree will get rid of all of this, so I just won't celebrate this year.
I have to worry about low-hanging trees just walking around, so it's a common concern for me.
oh my God.
But the menorah comes back into play, right? It's supposed to be the final set piece for this play at the synagogue. And yeah, so Stu comes out and he's like, it's the final moment. He wheels this thing out and his entire family is looking at him like, oh God, this is going to be a train wreck. And it quite literally is. He does not even have a moment of redemption. The thing essentially explodes, brings the curtain down around them, but it reveals this really nice scene between the two older gentlemen, between Boris and Shlomo, and all the kids as they are reading the final touches of the Hanukkah story to them. And it's such a sweet scene that it's a nice closer for the episode, but it's a nice closer for the play as well. Do you guys have any final thoughts or things that we missed from this episode?
Yes.
Shoot.
I want to talk a little bit about sort of the reveal with Shlomo. Sure. So Boris and Shlomo's rivalry comes to a head, when they're in the middle of the play, and Shlomo is really antagonizing Boris, and Boris is going back, and they're starting to fight. They cut the scene, they bring the curtain down, and they're arguing backstage about why have you always been this way? Why have you always been a shit to me? Why, and vice versa. And Boris is like, well, you've always valued your business over starting a family, and I think you've really, hated me for that. And then Shlomo reveals this heart-wrenching realization that him and his wife could never have children. And she passed away. And that she's passed away on top of that. On top of all of that. And, saying that, have a nice night because, I have no one to share my tradition with anyway.
I have the actual exact lines. The line leading up to this, it says, "You'd be proud of your family too if you had any." This is Boris the Shlomo being the absolute worst human, saying you'd be proud of your family too if you had any, but you were always too busy with your fancy pants business deals. And Shlomo goes, "Is that what you think?" And he goes, "Well, that's what you always said." And he goes, "Well, then I lied. There. Are you happy? That's what it is." And he hands him the crown, and he just goes, "Here, I've got no one to share a tradition with." And I was like, "Oh, fuck me."
That was rough.
I got misty-eyed in that moment. I was like, that's heart-wrenching.
And that's one of those things I don't think you really appreciate as a kid, because it's just kind of a moment that passes and you don't really pay attention to it because you're like, what are the babies doing? But when you come back and watch that from an older perspective, that's pretty tough. And especially because it's treated as just kind of like a side story in this story of Hanukkah. I do like that they bring it back around to Shlomo, who gets to read the story to the kids. And Boris kind of says, no, they want you to read it, so go ahead and read it. I'll just sit here and comfort Angelica after she's worn herself out from her tantrum. So Shlomo finishes the story of Hanukkah after all the bloody battles have happened. And this is where the miracle of the oil that is only enough for one night, but it lasts, is it 8 nights?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's enough for 8 nights. That's where that whole story comes from. And I have to say, I love miracle stories like this that seem at least plausible and practical and not completely insane and crazy.
Yep.
That's just my 2 cents. I'm like, I buy that. I'm okay with that. If somebody told me in the future that and lo, there was just enough gas in the tank to drive for 1 night, but somehow it stretched into 8 nights. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I could see that.
Somehow their Prius converted to just electrical power and managed to get them all the way to Pittsburgh.
They just ran on corn diesel. I get it.
Oh my
That's
God.
practical stuff. That makes sense. But then religion always has to one up each other, so it gets increasingly crazy from there. But I like a good practical miracle.
Whoa! Did Vinny all of a sudden come out right here?
Yeah, I like it. Hey, you guys got a good miracle over there. I like it. I can get behind this.
Slinging pies and latkes, my 2 favorite foods.
Yeah, and the food sounds great too.
It is.
What?
And the gelt.
Oh, and the gelt.
The food doesn't sound great. The food's not good.
No,
the food is great.
Latkes are delicious.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds great. The food is great.
He complimented you.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah. I can't take that.
Oh God.
I'm the chosen one, so. Just kidding.
Yeah, good point. It's a good point. He's riding on the coattails.
Chosen peeps.
So I have a couple very, very silly little jokes that they had peppered in throughout this episode that kind of made me giggle. This was one at the very beginning when there's still set back in ancient Greece, or when they're still set back in an ancient time, and they have this moment where Phil and Lil are seeing each other, and they're talking about all of the different groups, continuing to operate with some religious autonomy, but adopting more of the culture from the people that they were around. And there's this one moment where when Phil and Lil see each other, Phil goes, "Hail Lillian," and she goes, "Hail Philistine."
Yeah, that was pretty.
And it made me chuckle. I love the fact that there is this entire sequence. We talked about Angelica being a little shit. There is this moment where she throws a potato pancake. She throws a latke. Somebody slips on it. It is a gentleman dressed as a dreidel, and he lands on his back. And there is an older gentleman. He lands on his back, and the dreidel side up is the gimel. And this older gentleman sees all of the donuts and just goes, "I won!" and takes all of the donuts away. And then there's the little tiny moment where later on, when the guy in the dreidel comes out of the bathroom, he goes, "You made me bust a shin."
Mm-hmm. I heard that and I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, no, it's a side of the dreidel. So
he busted that
this guy
side
fracture his dang ankle?
Yeah, no. And then I want to talk about the fact that we talked about this Cynthia. Oh my gosh, the Cynthia extravaganza special, which I'm assuming is extravaganza, but correct.
It's done in Angelica speak.
So I don't even want to talk about that part of the show. What I want to talk about is the thing that they tease at the end of it, which is Santa versus the alien. And I'll be honest, that's the special that I want to see. That is the special I need to see. Guys, we need to make that holiday special.
It's got to be a sci-fi movie. Somewhere.
I'm sure that it is.
100%.
Some like half-star movie. Yeah.
They did it's like a prequel to Die Hard.
What?
Sure. Yeah, this is what happened before McLean.
It's a pre-prequel.
Oh, hold on. Let me
It's a prequel.
Let me be clear. We are in the month of December. Are we qualifying Die Hard as a Christmas movie?
I thought that the world did.
I do.
This podcast, and we were going to be a Die Hard podcast.
God, we are not.
Nothing but Die Hard.
We are literally going to have 5 episodes, and then we're just going to be waiting on Bruce Willis to see what he does with his career.
And no more Jai Courtney. Look, Shane Black pretty much sets all of his movies at Christmas. So to me, it is a Christmas movie.
I consider it a Christmas movie as well. Cool. Glad that we're all on the same page.
Back to Hanukkah, which is the topic of this episode.
What do you think? How do you think they're celebrating Hanukkah at Nakatomi Plaza right now?
I feel like they should have imploded that place after the destruction and death.
It's actually still there. I've been to the building where they shot it. It's still there.
They didn't implode it after that fake movie?
No, surprisingly enough, they did not.
Strange.
I have nothing to contribute.
Not a Hanukkah movie.
Nothing.
The end of this sentence. Well, you know who does have something to contribute? The folks out there in internet land.
Guys, as it turns out, you also have opinions on the internet, and we want to honor them by sharing our love it or hate it. And to help us with this segment, we are going to turn it over to a longtime listener and friend of the show, Bobby Anthem. Take it away with this week's Love It or Hate It.
This week's Love It was written by Amazon user Mandy Johnson on January 4th, 2003. Mandy gave a Rugrats Hanukkah 5 out of 5 stars and said, "Not only was this another endearing Rugrats episode, this video also had some very informative historical data. We were so excited to find a copy of this great video that provides accurate historical and cultural information on a child's level with characters he or she recognizes and loves. This video showed the babies playing games and eating Hanukkah snacks, which we provided for our learners. This video held 7-year-olds' attentions while instilling information about the history and culture of the Jewish faith. And our Hate It, also via Amazon, was given a rating of 1 out of 5 stars by CF on January 5th, 2015. This one is titled Don't Bother. It says, "This contains shots of an immodestly half-dressed woman in the show that Angelica is watching. She comes on the screen multiple times. The children in the show are rude to each other, which I guess is supposed to be funny. I threw it out."
Fantastic. Always the best. Thank you, Bobby. We appreciate it. Also, if you just have VHS tapes laying around in your house anyway, not a bad idea just to throw them out along with, Rugrats tapes that you just don't want anymore. Look, it's
I still have VHS.
I
have mint childhood VHS tapes that I will never get rid of.
I do too.
I cannot play them, but I will never get rid of them. Velveteen Rabbit is within a stone's throw of my current seat. Yeah, it just made everybody sad.
I did feel. I'm glad to feel sadness after the anguish and anger that I feel over that hated review, because that's some fucking bullshit.
Well, but the good thing is now it's our turn to say whether or not we loved or hated this show. So Mel, thank you again for joining us on Saturday Morning Cartoons. We're going to get to your recommendation. So, do you recommend a Rugrats Hanukkah special? And if not, does it get the dip, meaning it is erased from all existence for all time, and that is a terrible way to talk about this show?
Yeah.
It is, because we should not erase history.
Yes. Agreed.
Ooh.
Just want to make that bold statement.
Good.
Agreed.
Snaps to me. No, I love this episode. I love this special. And when I have children, they will absolutely be watching this. Sean's surprised face has entered into this arena.
Are they watching on VHS?
I don't have this on VHS. I don't think my mom ever taped this for me. I think I watched it live. But they will definitely be watching this along with Shalom Sesame to learn about their heritage. Nice. And I think they should, because it gives a nice introduction to the tradition that is Hanukkah.
Absolutely.
So that's me.
That's you. Sean, what about you, bud? I think you kind of have
I am, I have to what?
You have to recommend it. You don't have a choice.
100%. I have to recommend this as well. Even without Melanie twisting my arm a little bit about this, I would have definitely recommended this. It's a wonderful episode. I'm always glad to jump back into the Rugrats world and see some Nicktoons, especially because if you are a fan of the show, there might be something coming up in January that's related to Nicktoons that we do every year, so get on board. But this show is priceless. Fantastic. I love it. I'm also really excited, and I wanted to mention this, that we have all of these different... We have this Passover episode that we can do. We have a Kwanzaa episode that we will eventually watch and review for the show, which will be extremely educational for us. I'm also very, very excited because I did not realize there are a ton of different holiday episodes that the Rugrats have. The immediate episode after Rugrats Hanukkah is about Mother's Day, which is where they get into the heart-wrenching part about why Chaz isn't married and doesn't have a wife right now.
We've talked about that
and
for
Chucky,
years.
and Chucky understanding that, he does not have a mother. And so it is brutal. And they are like season 4, Rugrats came out swinging. They weren't pulling any punches at this point. And I love that about this show. Like, I love that they have some of these moments, and that as we're watching them as adults, it makes it that much more rewarding to get into it.
Absolutely. Nice sell. For me, we're 3 for 3. This is an easy one. It's great Rugrats cartoon on its own. It's a fun little Hanukkah episode that can either act as an introduction to the holiday or just kind of like a fun reminder of the holiday, or just like cute little in-jokes if you already know all about it and just need a break from the numerous Hanukkah-themed movies that are on TV this time of year. I literally can't think of any right now. No, I literally
Hebrew Hammer, if you can find it.
Oh, God. They're supposed to be coming out with a sequel to that. I don't know if the Kickstarter failed or not, but yeah, no, super fun.
I don't know.
I recommend it. I say check it out. I think that's going to be it for this particular episode, but of course we got more coming up. But in the meantime, Mel, what you up to this holiday season?
And where can the good people find you if they want to find you on social media?
I'm up to trying not to fall apart this holiday season, and you can see if I succeed or not on Instagram at Melanie_Gwyn, or on the Twitter at Melanie Gwyn, all one word. My middle name is Welsh.
I have a question.
So that's me.
Like, are you trying to
Dave?
physically not fall apart? Are you are you revealing like bits and pieces of you that are connected in some sort of weird advent calendar style on Instagram?
Oh, fingers crossed.
Fingers and bones.
Yes, I have tiny doors built in all over my body that reveal small treats.
Wow.
That's the stigmata.
That's not the stigmata. What?
Wow, that is not even close.
I think someone's got to go back and read the Bible?
Okay.
Genesis? Nope. Okay.
We'll talk about this later.
I'm going to put myself to bed.
Jesus.
Sean, what are you up to?
Guys, as always, I do live improv comedy in Washington, D.C. with a group that is called Knox. That's N-O-X exclamation point. We perform at Washington Improv Theater, and you can find tickets and times witdc.org. I'm trying not to fall apart either, I guess. And you can find out whether, I know, this is a good plan for anybody at this time of the year, so don't fall to pieces, guys. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, at Sean Paul Ellis. Dave?
You can find me on Twitter, Keeping It Together, Dr. Claw MD. You can also find us, you can find me on Collider.com, Nerdist.com, and DaveTrumbore.com as well. If you want to know more about this little podcast right here, you can head on over to SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can follow us on Twitter at MorningToons. Check out Sean's handiwork on his Instagram page. Keep the conversation going on Facebook, and listen to our free audio podcast each and every week through iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube, of course. Everybody loves YouTube. If you want to know what's coming up next week and next year, Happy New Year, on Saturday Morning Cartoons, you need to check out our Patreon page, because we will send out newsletters and all kinds of fun stuff, even early access to episodes. So head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons and check it out and be one of the cool kids and see if we can keep it together until the end of this year.
Keep it together for the next 24 hours, because tomorrow is Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Happy Hanukkah to Mel. Happy Hanukkah to Sean.
Happy Hanukkah.
And everybody else out there who's listening. And thanks again for Mel for coming in this week. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks everybody out there for listening. Have a happy holiday wherever you are, and we will see you next time.
Hey everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.